Most liked comment gets pinned. Let's see who wins. Good luck.
Relations between the Sussexes and the Prince of Wales remain fraught. William's running out of patience, said the source. Good on him. He believes the Sussexes have cashed in on their royal connection.
Stop while you are ahead, because you're going to look like a fool. It's ridiculous. Stop it. Okay? This doesn't even make sense to me that she would even think that she
went scorched earth. The palace said, absolutely not. We're going to completely cut you off now. Thanks to Oprah, thanks to Spare, thanks to the Harry and Meghan Netflix series, because they were...
William shut down every single maybe in one sharp, fearless move. Prince William crossed a line no future king had ever dared to cross. And once he did, there was no going back. This wasn't some whisper from the palace, no leak, no spin. It was words, signed and stamped with his own name. 19 words, that's all it took. But buried in those 19 words was a message so final that even senior insiders had to read it twice, stunned that he actually said it out loud.
Meghan's title could be on very shaky ground. Yet those close to the Duchess insist she won't be intimidated. Meghan's never been short of ambition or drive and is absolutely relentless, said the...
Those few words left no room for return. No second chances, no quiet fix behind the scenes. What shocked everyone most? William had spent his entire adult life doing the opposite.
On from royal life, those titles remain their foundation. She and Harry will fight hard to hold on to them. P. Dinah, your reaction?
The delusion.
He had mastered the art of silence, taking the hits, letting rumors swirl, keeping calm while chaos burned around him, because that's what heirs do. They wait, they plan, they protect the crown by keeping their mouths shut. Silence was his shield, and patience was his weapon. But when that silence stopped protecting him, everything changed. After years of control and caution, something inside William snapped.
Up with ego, she doesn't even know when to control it. Like, at this point, you need to just shut your mouth, okay? That's ridiculous. That's what I think.
Yeah, and the thing is, P. Dinah, Paula Frolic of News Nation is making it clear that William is very serious about this.
Why now? Why drop the royal mask and speak with such brutal clarity? The answer was painfully simple. Silence had stopped working. Every neatly worded palace statement about Meghan used to leave just enough space for doubt.
Shut your mouth, okay? You don't know what you're talking about. You are not going to get to keep that title. It is going to be stripped, and just get used to it.
Phrases like "in time" or "ongoing discussions" left doors open for speculation and manipulation. But this time, William slammed that door shut, permanently. His move wasn't emotional, it wasn't reckless, it was deliberate and surgical. He didn't hide behind advisors, protocol, or royal PR. This was William, unfiltered, declaring enough. Inside the palace, the shockwave hit instantly.
And I think this was important too. It certainly backed up my reporting over the past few months. Why William feels so strongly about this. Watch.
Insiders realized the moment they read his words, negotiations were over. This wasn't a warning, it wasn't a test run, it was the end. One former palace press secretary said it perfectly. When William speaks like this, the matter is beyond debate.
Sources are telling you the Duke and Duchess of Sussex may lose their title. Why? How did this happen?
Well, this happened because Andrew lost the title and Prince William stood up and took notice at how easy it was. So before...
That was the moment the tone shifted. The whispers stopped. The guessing ended. Everyone realized this wasn't about Meghan anymore. It was about power, legacy, and what kind of King William intends to be. A king who fights for his family, protects the monarchy, and doesn't back down. And while William drew his line, Catherine was fighting her own quiet war. Her breaking point didn't come from one headline. It came from a steady stream of them.
He has gotten with Meghan, and he now feels he has to protect her and, defend her at all costs, even when there's bad behavior involved.
By September 2024, she was deep in her work, early childhood projects, mental health campaigns, and long-term programs that were actually changing lives. But every time she made progress, something dark followed. Perfectly timed articles trying to undercut her credibility. Same phrasing, same palace insiders, same pattern. It wasn't random. It was synchronized.
Embarrassment, as we again saw with Andrew, with people off doing their things, and especially with Meghan and Harry, still
At first, Catherine brushed it off. She's always handled pressure with grace, but she's sharp. observant, and she started noticing the timing, so she began keeping track. By November, she had documented 10 separate cases where negative stories hit less than 48 hours after her major initiatives. 10. That's no coincidence. Calm but firm, she took everything to William and said quietly, "This is intentional. Interference." For someone who almost never complains, those words hit hard. William knew instantly. This wasn't gossip. This wasn't tabloids doing their usual chaos. This was an operation, a targeted strike meant to weaken her, and by extension, weaken the monarchy. That realization lit a fire under him.
Is so appropriate right now because it's Tom Bauer taking us back to when the king and Meghan spent some time together.
What looked like a PR mess suddenly became a security threat. He knew the crown couldn't keep pretending nothing was happening. Action was no longer a choice. It was survival. By mid-November, a classified security briefing confirmed his worst fears. It wasn't ceremonial. It was blunt and cold. Royal security teams had uncovered organized campaigns of online harassment, moving like clockwork.
Very angry at all times, and William's just kind of like, hey, who the heck are you? And yes, they do blame Meghan. Now, I don't like to blame one person for another person's actions. Everyone has their own responsibilities. However,
groups of fake accounts posting identical messages, same tone, same timing. It wasn't random noise, it was coordinated warfare. And with that discovery, everything inside the palace changed forever. Catherine wasn't just caught in the crossfire, she was the target. And when William demanded answers, what he heard chilled him to the core. Investigators confirmed that a major part of the network spreading hate traced directly to pro-Sussex supporters. What started as a family issue had exploded into a digital war zone designed to shake the royal foundation itself. Even then, Catherine stayed composed, always calm, never demanding revenge, never losing her grace, even while cruelty followed her every step. But watching his wife absorb constant, calculated attacks while still working, smiling and raising their children broke something inside William. He realized his silence, his royal restraint, was giving the enemy room to attack. Every vague statement, every polite pause had only made things worse.
Go to Mexico and figure this out and hash this out with her father, because the longer that this continues, the more talk.
The message was now crystal clear. This wasn't just personal anymore, it was institutional. The monarchy's weakness had become its weapon against itself. From that moment, William's hesitation vanished. The doors once left slightly open for diplomacy were now recognized as entry points for chaos. For the first time in decades, royal silence was no longer a strategy, it was a threat. And William knew it was time to act, no matter who stood in his way. While he found his clarity, King Charles was collapsing under the pressure. October 2024 had been brutal. Staff were running on fumes, PR teams were in overdrive, and the palace was in constant damage control mode over Sussex-related storms.
In Harry's book, Harry talks about how they bonded, Meghan Markle and the king, and just how close they truly were. But
Diplomacy, policy, and even global projects had been pushed aside, all just to manage headlines. Charles, drained and weary, finally admitted to a trusted aide, "I feel trapped between my love for Harry and my responsibility to the institution." His voice carried exhaustion, a man torn between blood and duty. He wanted peace, healing, some kind of reconciliation, but hope had slowly turned into paralysis.
Over the fact that Meghan wouldn't stop her father from going on television, and the king kept berating as Tom Bauer.
Every unanswered question spawned another headline. Every delay bred another crisis. And with his health already under strain, the weight became unbearable, personally and politically. William saw it all unfold. He heard his father's words about forgiveness and patience, but he also saw the price of waiting too long. The truth was harsh. Hope wasn't enough to hold an empire together. It needed structure, discipline, and limits. Slowly, William came to a conclusion Charles couldn't face. To protect the crown, you can't save everyone. Compassion can't replace accountability. If the monarchy was going to survive, someone had to draw hard lines, before speculation turned into collapse. That became William's new focus, not fueled by anger, but driven by precision and resolve. He believed a future king couldn't just be kind, he had to be firm, strong, decisive, and willing to act when silence becomes dangerous. That's when Princess Anne stepped in, calm as ever, sharp as a blade. She didn't raise her voice. didn't sugarcoat her words. She dropped truth with surgical precision. "You cannot protect everyone," she told him, a line that hit him like a hammer. Anne had spent her entire life inside the system. She knew what others were too scared to say. At some point, you choose the institution or the individual creating instability. Her tone was steady, but the message was brutal. She reminded William that the crown doesn't survive on emotions. It survives on boundaries, loyalty, affection, personal bias. None of it can outweigh the system that keeps the monarchy standing. William had been searching for balance, a way to protect family and uphold duty at the same time. But Anne shattered that illusion. There was no middle ground when the crown itself was at risk. Pressure was closing in from every side. Catherine's reputation was being ambushed. Charles was drained, palace staff were whispering doubts, and foreign leaders were quietly monitoring the royal storm, measuring just how close it was to breaking. Week by week, every delay became a liability, and as the walls tightened, William's clarity hardened. He accepted what his father couldn't. Survival required strength, not sentiment. If the monarchy was to endure, action had to come before collapse. And once again, Anne's voice cut through the palace noise. Cool, controlled, undeniable. "You cannot protect everyone." The words echoed in William's mind. This time, he understood exactly what she meant. Anne repeated it without hesitation, her voice steady as stone. At some point, you choose the institution or the individual creating instability. It wasn't a warning. It was law. Anne had lived her entire life by that truth. She had seen what others refused to face, that the crown doesn't survive on emotion, it survives on structure. Institutions stand because they draw clear lines. Loyalty can't outrank responsibility, and personal feelings can't outweigh survival, not when the fate of the monarchy hangs in the balance. William had been holding on to the dream of balance, believing he could somehow protect everyone and still protect the crown. But that illusion shattered under the pressure. There was no safe middle ground anymore, not when the monarchy itself was on the edge. Catherine was still enduring wave after wave of calculated attacks. Charles was drained to the bone, and palace staff were whispering doubts about whether the royal system could even last. Foreign allies were quietly watching, measuring the risk, wondering if the House of Windsor could still hold its ground. Every day of hesitation only made things worse. What began as family conflict had turned into a full-blown structural crisis. Anne's words wouldn't stop echoing in William's head. Leadership demanded action. Protection had limits, and indecision was no longer neutral. It was destructive. The chaos had been allowed to spread for too long, and now the very credibility of the crown was slipping. By the time William left that final briefing, his path was clear. Sacrifice was no longer avoidable. The institution had to come first, and in Anne's calm, unbreakable logic, he found the strength he'd been missing. This wasn't about wounded pride or personal grudges anymore. It was about survival, stability, and the integrity of the monarchy itself. Then came December 1st. Windsor Castle, the air thick with quiet tension. Inside a private study, William arrived early, carrying just one folder. Inside it, the statement that would end decades of uncertainty and speculation. The moment felt heavy, almost historic. He placed the folder on the desk and waited. Charles entered next, face lined with exhaustion from weeks of chaos. Then came Anne, her expression sharp, composed, all business. Finally, Catherine stepped in, calm and focused, ready to witness a decision that would reshape everything. There was no ceremony, no media, no soft words, just a room full of truth and duty. William opened the meeting without fanfare. This decision will be permanent. The words dropped like thunder. Silence filled the room before the statement was read aloud. Slow, deliberate, every word chosen with precision. Every sentence landed like a seal, final, undeniable. When he finished, the air felt frozen. Catherine spoke first, her tone clear and steady. It's clear. It doesn't attack. It states reality. Her words cut straight through the tension. She saw the statement for what it was. Not emotional, not vengeful, but factual. A declaration of institutional truth. Nothing more, nothing less. Charles hesitated, visibly burdened by the weight of the moment. For a long, still pause, the only sound was the ticking clock. Then finally he nodded and said quietly, "You have my support." It wasn't agreement out of comfort. It was trust. Trust that his son was ready to lead, and that trust mattered. deeply. At 7:48 a.m. the next morning, the statement went live across the world. Within minutes, headlines flipped, timelines exploded, and history shifted in real time. A single document had closed a turbulent chapter and opened a new one built on clarity and control. The monarchy had drawn its line, and there was no turning back. But across the ocean in California, it was 4:48 a.m. when Harry's phone buzzed in the dark. Half awake, he reached for it, expecting the usual updates. Instead, he froze. On his screen was the statement, his brother's words, the final break. He read it silently, no calls, no messages, no explanations. It wasn't palace PR, it wasn't sources close to the royals. It was William, speaking directly, closing the chapter himself. Those close to Harry later said something in him broke at that moment. Meghan's response was quieter, composed, calculated, but her expression revealed the truth. This was final. The statement had erased all narrative flexibility, no loopholes, no spin, no way out. For years, ambiguity had been her armor, the gray space she could shape, reframe, and reinterpret. But that armor was gone now. William's statement sealed the story, publicly, permanently, and without room for revision. There was no spectacle, no public scene, just quiet devastation. The air around that moment was still, yet the consequences were seismic. This wasn't rumor anymore. This wasn't internal debate. It was reality. The crown had acted, and the decision was absolute. For Harry and Meghan, the world they once believed they could influence had shifted under their feet. The monarchy had drawn its boundary, and it would never, ever be the same again. Their path had split, permanently. From that moment on, Harry and Meghan's world moved separately from the monarchy's forward march, with no overlap and absolutely no return. This wasn't symbolic or ceremonial. It was operational, decisive, and irreversible. The effects hit instantly. No more royal coordination, no institutional support, and no seat at any future royal milestones. Every appearance, every event, every quiet assumption of inclusion was rewritten overnight. For Meghan, the future would now play out entirely on her own terms. But this time, without the royal leverage, influence, or shield that once gave her power. The uncertainty that once gave her room to maneuver was gone. The maybe, the someday, erased history now carried William's decision as fact, sealed, signed, and final. The institutional record couldn't be debated, twisted, or softened. What remained for Meghan was freedom, but not the glittering kind. This was freedom with weight, freedom that demanded accountability. Every move, every opportunity, every misstep now rested solely on her shoulders and those in her inner circle. This shift wasn't punishment, it was definition. The crown had drawn its line in stone, declared its boundaries, and set a precedent for generations to come. Royal watchers understood immediately. This was an extraordinary, almost unheard-of moment in modern monarchy. A total public severing of influence carried out with icy precision and complete clarity. For Meghan, this wasn't abstract. It wasn't a quiet maybe later. It was final. No royal coordination, no institutional connection, no invitations, no future milestones to attend. Every trace of inclusion was recalibrated in real time. Her next chapter would unfold without the crown's umbrella, fully independent but exposed. Without royal leverage or institutional protection, ambiguity vanished. The comfortable gray areas that once blurred accountability had been wiped out completely. History now carried William's statement as law, unchangeable and irreversible. Freedom, yes. But freedom came with weight. Independence is heavy when the safety net disappears. Every decision, every opportunity, every consequence now rested solely on Meghan and her circle. The crown wasn't punishing her, it was defining itself. The monarchy had drawn hard lines, set immovable boundaries, and built a model for how future royal decisions would be made, with precision and purpose. Observers across the world recognized it instantly. This was the royal family reasserting control with a discipline unseen in decades, a permanent public detachment, executed cleanly, decisively, and without spectacle. For Meghan, it symbolized both liberation and limitation. Her narrative was hers to shape now, but the royal platform, the one that amplified her voice, was gone. For the monarchy, the path forward was clear. No ambiguity, no quiet negotiations, no half-statements left open to interpretation. The crown had spoken, and the world would remember it. This wasn't revenge. It was resolution. William chose certainty over hope, protection over emotion, and the institution over illusion. That single choice redefined everything that followed. It marked a turning point. A leader showing that clarity, boundaries, and discipline are not optional, even when bloodlines make the choice unbearable. Historians will debate this moment endlessly: the ethics, the timing, the fallout. But one fact stands unshakable. At 7:48 a.m. on a cold December morning, Prince William closed the longest unresolved chapter in modern royal history. The monarchy, long paralyzed by rumors, doubt, and internal conflict, finally stepped forward without hesitation. From that day on, the direction was unmistakable. William's reign will forever be measured by this decision. It became the blueprint for how he leads. Allies, critics, and the public all received the same message loud and clear. Stability matters more than convenience. Principles outweigh personal comfort. Clarity must always win over sentiment. It showed that real leadership means making painful choices, drawing hard lines, even when family is on the other side of them. That's the price of the crown, the weight of duty over desire. From that day forward, the monarchy stopped waiting and started moving. Decisions were made with purpose. Narratives were no longer left to tabloids or rumor mills. Speculation stopped driving the story. The palace did. The age of endless ambiguity was over, and a new chapter began, one powered by structure, control, and forward motion. And in the years to come, this moment will define William's legacy, not by words, but by action. His ability to stand firm when uncertainty threatened everything the crown stood for will be remembered as the day the monarchy reclaimed its voice. If you've got thoughts on this turning point, drop them in the comments. And if this breakdown made you see the royals in a new light, hit subscribe and stay tuned. More shocking deep dives are coming soon.